welcome to another episode of Subject to Interpretation. I'm your host, Maria Ceballos-Wallis. Today, we have the privilege of speaking with David Hardin, a seasoned business advisor, entrepreneur, and motivational coach. With over 25 years of experience, David has dedicated his career to guiding others to unlock their potential and align with their true purpose. This year, David will be featured as the keynote speaker at the annual business retreat hosted by DLMII Institute of Interpretation, where he'll present his keynote, The Power of Purpose, Embracing Your Mission in Life. And he'll also lead a workshop on productivity. Known for his ability to transform businesses and inspire leaders, David has built and scaled companies from small ventures to multi-million-dollar successes, all while empowering business owners to achieve meaningful growth and balance in their lives. His clients often find a deeper sense of purpose and the freedom to step back, with many now able to enjoy extensive time off without impacting their business. Welcome, David.
Hey, how's it going?
It's great. We're excited to have you here today, and I'm really excited to dive into this conversation because we work hard and we try to play hard, but it doesn't always happen. We have responsibilities, we have families, we have children. And so unless we just play and work, there's no balance, right? So
Yeah.
talk to me about your philosophy and the philosophy that you share with the clients that you mentor.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's tough, right? That balance, and a lot of people lead to burnout. And so, what I love end up working with and teaching people is how to prioritize, how to find your personal ethos, right? Your North Star, whatever nickname you want to use. Once you start realizing why you were put on this earth, then you start realizing, yeah, I don't mind being this busy, and you don't reach burnout, and then you start all the things start falling in place for you, right? When you hear people like, "Oh, you're so lucky," I'm unlucky. Like, well, I don't know if I believe in luck. I think it's when you line things up, you put things out in the universe, put it out to God, whatever you believe in, things start opening up to you when you have that. And so, and then on the practical side, the productivity piece, learning how to prioritize, learning how to cut out the noise, focus on the most important things, focus on tomorrow, not just today. There's a whole lot of stuff there, and I'm just so passionate about it, and I can't wait to share it with everybody.
Well, can you share a little bit about your journey from starting small ventures to building multi-million-dollar successes? What were some of the key lessons you've learned along the way?
How much time do we have?
How long is a piece of string?
Oh, very nice, very nice. Yeah, it's I've always been an entrepreneur, and I've always been the one who wanted to have a problem with authority, and so I've always had to work for myself because I've worked somebody else. I'm usually butting heads or quitting real fast because I always found a better way to do things. Um, so at a very young age, I started businesses, and even at 13 years old, I started a business, which is kind of a cool story. And I've been able to grow and see opportunities. I opened up my first gym when I was 26 years old. Actually, I bought a gym that was failing when I was 26 years old, living down in Florida. And I realized that I ended up turning into a really big success. And it wasn't because I was a good trainer. I had good clientele, but I understood business. I understood how to sell. I understood how to market myself and market the gym. I understood how to hire people, recruit the right staff, and bring in good leaders to where next thing you know, I was able to go play volleyball and surf a lot more because I built a business that was running like a well-oiled machine. And so fast forward another 10 years, I started doing that for some other companies. I got the consulting bug where I had another gym owner reach out to me we had a mutual friend in common. They said, "Hey, you're doing quite well. I'm struggling. Can you help?" And so I was just helping. That's my personal ethos, by the way, is helping others. And I was just helping this person out. And I gave them all this advice, and they ended up cutting me a pretty large check. And all of a sudden I go, I just got paid to share my experiences and my knowledge. Maybe there's something here. So I spent the next bunch of years trying to pursue that. And every single time I would pitch a client to be their consultant, they would hire me full time. So it took 5 years for me to actually do this as a living because I just kept getting hired when I was pitching all these things. That's where I started, working with other companies. My favorite success story is I was an executive for a company that was only doing 3.5 million in revenue, and I left there just under 4 years. And when I left, we were at 35 million in revenue. So a 10x in less than 4 years. And now I can't take full credit for that, but I definitely take some credit. And one of the biggest things that we did to turn that company into such a great success was we focused on productivity. We focused on caring about our staff. We focused on helping them discover why were they put here? What do they enjoy doing? And yeah, not everybody wants to work at the front desk, but when a front desk staff understood, hey, I love talking with people, I love helping people, then that front desk minimum wage staff worker wasn't so miserable. Oh, I hate working for minimum wage. It's like, no, they actually enjoyed it because they got to talk with people all the time. They got to help them out. So that's a little bit of the journey there. I don't know if I answered your question. Going on a tangent there, but yeah.
No, that's a really great segue to my next question, which is, at what point, I guess, did the penny drop where you decided to shift your focus exclusively, it sounds like, from focusing on financial growth for, companies, making the money and growing the company, to helping, I guess, maybe not just your clients, including helping yourself and your clients to find that purpose and balance?
I don't really know if there was ever a difference for me. I think since day one, it went hand in hand. I became a personal trainer when I turned 18, started a personal training business back then. It was a long time ago. I won't say when, but a long time ago. And I recognized that to get the best results from the clients, it wasn't just about the workouts that you're doing. It was about getting into their psychology. It was about getting the understanding what makes them tick, and to be able to get them to understand why they're trying to do what they're doing. For example, if I had somebody come to me and says, David, I want to lose 10 pounds before beach season, I wasn't the guy to work with because that's easy. Anybody could do that. You don't need me. But if somebody came to me and David, I want to lose 100 pounds because I don't want to go on heart medication, or my back, I have to have back surgery, but I don't want to. Right. So I started working with these people and getting them, they would cry to me when I first met them. And that's what sales side, that's when I knew I had them as a done deal. But that's when I knew they were serious. And that's when I knew, hey, as a personal trainer, as a coach, it wasn't just about the what I was doing, it was the why we were doing things. And so I think I took that with every single thing I did in business. Any single client that I worked with, any single vendor that I worked with, I always would connect on a personal level. And Simon Sinek always talks about finding your why. And I think I understood at a very young age. And so I can't really answer that question because I think it's always been there.
So it sounds to me like you're a perfect example of, if you love what you do, you'll never work a day in your life.
I hear that phrase a lot. You're still going to work hard. You're just
It's
not
just
going
not
to
going to
hate.
feel like work, is what I
Yeah,
mean.
you're just not going to hate it, right? When I hear people say you'll never work a day in your life, I'm like, you still got to bust your ass. You still got to work hard, but you, when you understand your purpose, you don't feel miserable working hard. And there's another lesson in there too that I've been teaching a lot is all the people I work with, especially business owners. There's nothing wrong with working hard, and you should be working hard. But what I think is wrong is when you don't have an end goal in mind. And so I've talked to business owners in their 50s and 60s and 70s, some in their 80 years old. And I'm like, so what are you looking to accomplish? You've been in this business for 50 years. When is enough enough? Or, when are you going to hit your goal? And they'll say to me, I never really had a goal. It was just do better. And that was me in my 20s. We grew up poor South Side Chicago. My entire family, very, very poor. And when I started my businesses, in my 20s, I didn't have any goals. It was like, I got to do better in next year. I got to do better. I got to do better, right? And more. You hit a couple 100,000 in your first couple of years, and then you do more, and then you do more. I never had an end goal. And I found myself working way too much. My relationships were suffering. Other business ventures I was doing were suffering. My friendship, I wasn't doing much because it was just that mindset, more, 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 more. And I read a book when I turned 30 called The Power of Less. Fantastic book. Short read too. But it started talking about prioritization, but it also brought up finding your goal. And then I realized, wow, well, I got to find my goal. I defined that goal. I reverse engineered it into micro bite-sized chunks of what I need to do to hit the goal. Then I hit that goal, and I hit that goal in, let's say, 65 hours a week. Well, then the next goal wasn't, well, keep working 65 hours a week and make more money. It was, all right, keep making the same amount of money because that's all you need, and then work 50 hours, 40 hours, 30 hours. So I've done that. I'm 43 years old right now. I've been doing that for the last at least 12 years. Because it took me a little while to kind of adopt what I learned. And I'm at a point where, you know, I maybe average 22 hours a week of work. I probably shouldn't be saying that publicly, but I have other projects too that I work on, right? But that was the goal. I get that revenue mark and then work less. So I've been teaching a lot of people that, like, you got to find that goal. You got to find what you're looking for, and then everything else we can reverse engineer and put the plan in place.
Now, with those 22 hours a week, it sounds like it's a perfect match with your adventurous lifestyle. I mean, you're known for, we were talking earlier about, your surfing adventures, diving, rock climbing. How do these experiences shape your outlook on life and your approach to business and to work?
But definitely, I subscribe to the work hard, play hard, but I'm more subscribed to the you have to enjoy life. I'm gonna Hopefully my dad won't listen to this because I'm gonna pick on him real quick. My dad is that one guy who, like I said, we grew up poor. To get out of poverty, he worked two full-time jobs, two 40-hour-week full-time jobs for most of my childhood. And when he's 65 now. And I will tell him, I was like, why don't you start enjoying life? I've been telling that I've telling that my entire life. We've always butted heads. Like, he'd be, put your money away. I'm like, I'm gonna go to Spain. I'm gonna go do something. He's like, you should be saving that money. I'm like, I'm gonna go experience life. And I remember telling him, I'm like, go do something you enjoy. And he would say, I enjoy working. I think that was just his default. Oh, I enjoy working. He busted his ass. He worked hard with his hands, but that was his enjoy. No, come on. Like, yes, you can enjoy work, but I think to be able to enjoy life and experience life. I'm an adventurous person, right? I do things that I like to do. Um, Not everybody wants to do adventurous things, but there's something out there. If you're doing the same thing over and over and over, day in and day out, all day long, even if you love it, go experience more. There's other things out there, and one thing I love about this audience that will be listening and that we'll see at the conference is different generations, different cultures. I tell every single American, all my friends, all my family, go travel the world, go meet other people, go to different countries, see how they live. It gives you great perspective, and it kind of makes you feel part of that human family versus just Chicago or just Orlando or anywhere. Um, yeah, it makes a difference to be able to go there and travel and experience life and live life to the fullest. Anybody listening here, I would actually ask you, look in the mirror tonight, look in the mirror tomorrow morning, and be honest with yourself. Do you truly feel like you were living life to the fullest? And if so, awesome. I pat you on the back. Fantastic. And if you're not, maybe it is a little bit. Maybe you want a little bit more. But if you're listening to me say this and you're nodding your head and like, yeah, man, I really need to do more, there's no better time than now. Because then the next thing you know, COVID happened, right? When when people ask me, like, yeah, how long ago was it when we did this, we did that? Like, a year ago, 5 years ago? COVID like really screwed with our timeline. And it's it's November 2024. The year's almost over. It's a half a decade since 2020. I still think 30 years ago was the 90s. Wait, no, that was 30 years ago. No, I'm sorry. I still think 30 years ago was the 70s. That's what I meant to say. When I would think 30 years ago, I would think the 70s. And now all of a sudden it's like 30 years ago was the late 90s. Time goes by. Don't wait. Do it now.
It definitely does. And let's talk about the conference. You just mentioned that Saturday, December 7th of 2024, almost at the end of the year, kind of like a way to close out the year. The DLMII Institute is having their annual business retreat and holiday celebration, and that's going to be at the Gaylord Palms resort in Orlando, and you're going to be the keynote speaker. Your presentation is the power of purpose, embracing your mission in life. You've told us, I guess, you've shared already a lot of us how passionate you are about life as such and enjoying it. But what inspired you to focus on this theme for this particular conference?
I think it's one of the biggest things missing from a large part of the population. I think a large part of the population, they get into, and it's not even about your career, because you could do any type of career and still have your, what I call your personal ethos. But I think a lot of people just feel empty inside. I've read a lot of different books where they talk about, I love reading business books, but also motivational books. And a lot of authors will point out that there's just so many people walking around kind of hollow and empty inside. And I firmly and truly believe that if you don't understand, and I'm not saying you're going to find out exactly what it is, right? When we die, we meet our maker, we'll find out what that is. But I think you can pretty much feel what your purpose is, and for some, that might be my purpose is to be a shoemaker and make shoes and make the world a better place by making shoes. Awesome. For me, it's helping others. I get that from my mom and my dad, but mostly a lot from my mom is every single thing that I do as a personal trainer, as a coach, as a business consultant, as a motivator, as anything that I do, always lines with helping others. Ask anybody who knows me. I kind of had a like 40, 50 people in my house for my birthday back in August. And I probably had a dozen people, and it was a little bit too much, but probably had a dozen people be like, why don't you sit down? Why don't you relax? Because I'm cooking this and I'm grilling this and I'm making drinks and I'm doing this and I'm running around. By the end of the day, I'm exhausted. And people were, they're like, did you even enjoy your birthday? I'm like, this is what I enjoy. I'm making everybody else have a great time. That's what I enjoy. When I lead my rock climbing or ice climbing escapades, I bring others there, and I have just as much joy watching somebody climb ice, frozen ice for the first time, or surf a wave for the first time. I have just as much joy watching them do that than I do doing it myself. Right. So you can hear the passion in my voice, right? Like I have found that, and I'm firm that excuse me, that when I meet my maker and be like, hey, that's exactly what I built you for.
So how do you help people identify their core values, and why are these so essential for resilience and fulfillment? We talked about
Mm.
COVID a few minutes ago, and without resiliency, a lot of us had a really hard time, making it through and getting past all of the challenges that COVID brought.
Well, I can't give away too much because then I'll start going into what I'm going to present in the keynote. But if I'm having an individual conversation with somebody, I would start by asking, what do you enjoy doing? Which may sound trivial, but you can learn a lot about somebody when you find out what they enjoy doing. Um, I enjoy cooking, I enjoy sewing, whatever it is, right? That's a good way to start the conversation. And so again, if you're looking in the mirror, start, talking to yourself. Okay, well, what do I enjoy doing? Why do I? There's that word again, why. Why do I enjoy doing this? Right. And then you start figuring that piece out. So I go there and have a conversation of the why piece. And then I'll start asking, what did your parents do? What's important to you? What motivates you? What gets you up, every single day? A lot of people don't have the answer to that. A lot of people say, my boss. My boss is what gets me up every single day. Like, okay, then maybe you need change. And so then I try to start guiding people towards, okay, well, asking a question, if I handed you $500 million, you never had to work a day in your life, what would you do? And I start asking people that question. Not a lot of people know what they would do. It's a weird question, but it's like if you had to wake up and had no responsibilities and you could just do anything that you want to do, a lot of people would say, well, for the first 6 months, I'm going to go sit on a beach and go do nothing because I've been busting my ass for so long. But that gets old real fast, and so I try to guide people in those conversations. So obviously in the conference, there's gonna be a lot more people. So it's gonna be very general. So there's gonna be a lot of questions like that. I'm trying to force as much introspection as possible by bringing some triggering questions to get people to start thinking and brainstorming and being introspective on it. But I'm also going to bring out a couple things that may rock some people. I have no problem making someone feel, I don't want to say bad, maybe a little guilty. I got no problem having tough conversation with people. Let's put it that way. To get people to, a lot of people want they want to hear what they want to hear. I've got a lot of really, really good close friends, but I've lost friends over the years because I've always been that type of person. I'm like, you know what? I'm not just going to tell you what you want to hear. I'm going to tell you what you need to hear. And so there's going to be some of that during the keynote. I'm going to try to rock some people's lives so that way when they leave, maybe they recognize that there's this empty pit in their stomach that they've known it's always been there, but they just ignored it. I'm going to try to wake that up. I'm going to try to get that out of there to where when you leave this conference, you're going to have one of two choices. Continue to ignore that pit in your stomach, continue to go about in your life, and maybe you have a good life. Maybe it's not going to be the best life, or you're going to feel it and like, I'm going to change. And I want to touch on that real quick. A lot of us know Tony Robbins, one of the most famous motivational speakers. He charges tens of thousands per person for like a 1 or 2 day workshop. It's insane how much he charges. I've never been. I've seen a lot of his stuff. He's got great stuff. They did a study, and he's been doing this for decades. 3% of people actually make a change when they go to these things. Imagine spending $40,000 on a conference and you're learning all these things and you're feeling great. You're getting motivated. Yeah, I'm going to change my life, right? 97% of people, nothing changes. So my goal is to get 4%, not 3%. Be better than Tony Robbins. um,
What tools have you
yeah.
found that actually make a difference in terms of if someone actually changing? I mean, a lot of people want to change,
Mhm.
but they need not just the motivation, they might need the accountability, they might need
Mhm.
the guidance, they might actually need permission to fail.
Yeah. Accountability partners, writing down your goals. Like, you know, uh, I'm also an exit advisor, which means I help businesses sell their companies for as much money as possible, and I help prep business owners for that next stage. And they do an annual report where they survey business owners that sold their businesses. And it's something like 70 to 80% of all business owners that sell their business within 1 year regret selling their business. And the number one reason why isn't because, oh, I don't have the money anymore. Oh, blah, blah. It's because they don't know what's next. Their identity was built into their business. And so all of a sudden, let's say you have a plumbing company. For 35 years, you've been a plumber. And all of a sudden, you wake up one day and now you're not a plumber. Now it's like, now what? And then in those surveys, there's more questions where they say, do you have a plan in place for what you're going to do next? And it's like 68% say, yeah, we have a plan, but it's not written down. It's just up in my head. And only a small percentage actually have it written down. So they've done studies, they've done interviews, and they realize those that write it down end up happier in achieving the goals like tenfold versus those that just have it up in their head. So that's another tool right there is writing your goals down. And maybe there's like 3 different pathways you can go, but you have it written down. Then you can reverse engineer it. I am here. I want to be here. Okay, well, you can't just leap there step by step, right? So I try to guide people there. Have an accountability partner, share your goals, writing your goals down, being able to admit sometimes you're wrong. I think is a big piece too. That's another that I don't know if that's a tool, but it's another way to kind of be like, hey, you know what? Maybe I committed to this path. Maybe I should steer and have some grace for yourself. There's other tools too, but I think that's a good start if you're trying to just get into this here.
Now, you're also, in addition to the keynote, you're actually going to be giving a workshop
Mhm.
on personal productivity for professional translators and interpreters. Um, before we talk a little bit about what some of the strategies that you might be focusing on for that, I'd like to hone in on technology and maybe our artificial intelligence just in general. Generally we know we talk about, productivity. The more productivity we have, the more tools we have, more productivity, the more we can work, the more we can work, the more we can make, we can produce, et cetera, et cetera. And it's kind of like the hamster in a wheel. And, in the last year, really, we have um, AI has really come into the forefront. And it is something that is preoccupying people who are in the T&I industry. and it is something that is going to affect us and that we're going to have to learn to work with and through. So I'm wondering if you could talk a little bit about, the current trends for productivity in terms of technology.
Yeah, it's a big question mark of where we're going with it. I myself am diving into it for a little bit here, trying to learn as much as I can. Um, I think there is some fear with it, especially in certain industries, maybe in this industry as well. Um, but to be able to, first thing I would say is like jump on ChatGPT, say, here's my schedule, here's everything that I'm doing, here's what I'm working on. It's kind of impressive that if you say, hey, I need to save 5 hours a week. And by the way, when we talk about productivity, it is incremental, or it is micro changes incrementally, right? When I work with a business owner, we may say, hey, let's focus on growing your revenue. Let's focus on growing your profit. Let's hire more staff. Those are big, I would like to call home runs and grand slams. Productivity, they're walks and they're bunts. If you don't know baseball, I apologize. But they're the little itty bitty changes here, right? And it takes time. Throw in a ChatGPT and say, I'm working 65 hours a week right now. I want to work 60 and like bite-sized chunks. And it actually will start to point out, well, hey, you could remove this, or you could double this, or you could stop doing that. For example, I would throw in my entire to-do list in a ChatGPT or any other AI that you're using. I just prefer ChatGPT because I've got more experience with it. And I would say, here's the entire to-do list of what I'm working on. I need to complete all of these. Can you help me prioritizing to put them in order of most importance to least importance and most urgent to least urgent? Because it isn't just most and least, right? I have what I call a priority urgency matrix, to where it's an x-axis and a y-axis, right? And the higher priority here, the higher urgency here, right? And then you've got the most urgent, most priority things. You work on those first, and then you've got. I'll have this graphic up when we have the conference. But being able to go there, ChatGPT could actually help you ask you questions. It'll be like, well, why is this more important than that? It's kind of a really cool tool to start asking, why did I put this as number 12 instead of number 13? Or why is this not higher or lower on the list? And then you start asking yourself, or ChatGPT can start asking you, well, what are the steps that you need to do to complete this? So there's some really cool things you could do with it. I haven't gotten too far on using AI for productivity, but I've done it for a lot of other things there. And just even if it's not based on productivity, I right here, I had to write a letter to contest a parking ticket that I got. It's literally right here. I did this earlier today. And I've got this all up in my head. And I'm like, okay, well, you start typing this out. And I go, wait a minute. I went to ChatGPT, said, hey, here's my parking ticket. Here's where I think that I'm in the right and they're in the wrong. Can you write a letter for me? And it wrote it in 15 seconds. I had to edit a little bit. This thing maybe took me 3 minutes instead of like 30 minutes of, well, I should say this, I should say that. So even just that there alone, using it as a resource to help you with some of your projects will make a big difference.
Well, the caveat, of course, is use it as a resource, and also you have to be mindful that you have to check it, fact check it, edit it, et cetera, and
Yeah,
be happy with what it came up with. But the bottom line is that all sentences have subjects, verbs, objects, indirect objects, periods, et cetera, capital letter at the beginning. So that's what AI is actually really good at. Anything that's
yeah,
formulaic, right?
yeah. I gave the info, I gave what I wanted in my head, and it made it sound very professional. But again, I had to edit it. I had to change it a little bit, but it put the foundation, the skeleton out there for me.
So that was there. You felt good about yourself because it took 3 minutes as opposed to 30 minutes. And now you have 27 minutes to
Yep.
prepare for this interview, for example.
Yeah. I was in California last week, and I had a very busy weekend. I felt like I had zero free time for the last 8 days. And in those 27 minutes, I got a load of laundry done. I cleaned my office. I did some other things that I had to do because I got another busy week coming up. And I go to Puerto Rico next week. So it every minute counts, and it helped.
So let's talk a little bit about the translation and interpretation industry in relation to other businesses that you have worked with.
Hmm.
What sets this field apart, if there's anything that does set it apart in your experience?
It's a good question for Claudia or Augustine. I've actually more and more that I've learned from Augustine and Claudia on this front is recognizing that just because you speak another language doesn't mean that you're a good interpreter. I didn't know that. I think most people don't know that. I would say the majority of people don't know that. Um, when it comes to business, I mean, think about it. The way that I was taught from either Claudia or Augustine, I couldn't remember which one said this, but when I first met them, they were saying that, imagine somebody's going to jail for a very long time because the interpreter misinterpreted what the defendant said. Or even worse, somebody's medicine is wrong and somebody dies because the interpreter wasn't truly an interpreter, right? There's real world consequences there. But on the business front, if you're doing international business or you're doing business, I have dreams of living in southern Spain or southern France or southern, and like the whole Riviera area. I love. Yeah, I can still do work here in America, but I'm a morning person. And so if I'm going to work with clients here, that means I got to work the evenings there. So I better learn how to work business in Spain, in Italy, in France. And, I spoke Spanish a little bit as a kid. I'm sure I could pick it back up, but business terminology, now, you're not going to learn some of that stuff in just taking a Duolingo course. So having an actual translator who could do this and understand things there, I think is monumental. I think the work that they do is extremely undervalued, underrated. I don't think people understand the importance of the everyday impacts, like from small business to courts and death and medical. It's needs to be paid attention to a little bit more.
Can you share any examples of clients who you've been able to help achieve their productivity goals while also gaining more of that personal freedom? For example, that idea that you mentioned that you might one day want to go and live in the Riviera.
Hmm.
That would require a combination of factors, right?
Yeah, yeah. I actually, right before we had this meeting, I was meeting with one of my clients. His name's Ryan, and I've been helping him grow his revenue in different revenue streams. And a couple months ago, we've been working together, I think, since January this year. So almost a full year. In a couple months, he says, "You know what, David?" He goes, "All the stuff that we're trying to do, increase this revenue stream, focus on this marketing strategy, hire these people there, delegate." He said, "I don't have the time." So why I want to do that, and I think he's in his mid 50s. He refuses to work 80 hours a week. He has built a comfortable life to where he's like, you know what? I've learned I don't if I have to, if he has to, he will. But he has these boundaries that he's learned. And so he's like, David, I need you to help me figure out how to actually implement these things because I got no time. And so I warned him. I said, listen, Ryan, you need to understand. We've been hitting home runs and grand slams. This is going to go slow. This is a 30-minute savings here. This is an hour here. This is a little bit there. And here we are. I feel like we started this journey in July, and here we are in November. When I ask him probably once a month, hey, how much less or how less stress do you have? How are you feeling? He's like, man, I feel much better. I don't feel as overwhelmed. I don't feel as guilty that I'm not getting things done because we've eliminated a bunch of stuff that just didn't really matter. And we started just putting these tactics and these guardrails in place. A couple weeks ago, month ago ish, again, COVID memory with time. He asked me, he's like, you know what, David? Every Monday morning, I try to organize what I'm going to do on my to-do list. To do D-O and to do D-U-E. He tries to organize that. I said, you know what? Invite me. Invite a meeting. I'll come join your meeting at 8 or 9 a.m. on Monday morning, and let me get inside your head to see how you plan out your week, and then I'll give you my input, my advice. And doing that, we've done it a couple times now. He's so much happier. He's so much less stress. And so now we literally, this meeting we just had right before this, we worked on our 2025 and 2026 projections. Incremental to get there. Our goal is by the end of 2026, he could hire his replacement and he could just kick back and relax and watch the business grow and do whatever he wants to do. So on that front, he lives in Estes Park, Colorado. He could go hike more. He could go hang out with and do the things he wants to do. Same thing with me. I've learned how to reverse engineer things and get it to where I could build it. So I have a clear path on what it's going to take for me to get to the point where I could go live in Southern Spain if I want to. And a
I
lot of
like,
that is this productivity piece.
well, I like the idea of reverse engineering. I'm wondering if there is a difference between being able to reverse engineer when you have a company that produces a physical product
Mhm.
and or perhaps provides a service that can be measured in terms of, how often it is needed and used.
Mhm.
And when you are part of what, some people might call, the gig economy for, and I say that for, translators and interpreters who, unless they work for have a particular client that has a particular, need that is pretty steady, or they work full time at a particular company, basically they're waiting to receive their next assignment, or they're waiting to be called up for the next project.
Mm. One, if you're sitting back and waiting, you're playing behind the eight ball. You got to go hustle. You got to go find it, right? Um, I'll wait for a referral from, a client will say, "Yeah, I've got a friend who has a business. I'd love to introduce you. I told him about you. Great, introduce me." Time goes by, time goes by. I'm waiting and waiting and waiting. If I keep waiting, I'm never going to get, maybe it'll take months to get that intro. But I could go ahead and reach out and say, "Hey, you mentioned this a couple weeks ago. You want to make an introduction. Can you make an introduction?" And maybe they still don't do it. Then I say, "Can you just give me their contact information? I'll reach out on your behalf." Right. So I'm taking it by the reins and doing it. So if you are in a gig economy and doing gig work or, projects, you got to learn how to market yourself. You got to go learn how to go be where the people are that you want to sell to. You can't sit back and wait. So that's not answering your question, but first off, you can't. You got to go do that. And if you don't know how to do it, there's resources. There's people like me, YouTube. There's Udemy. There's all these different ways that you could learn how to market yourself. We're in the social media age. Start a social. It takes time, but start a social media platform. Start putting yourself out there, making yourself established as an expert. There's a lot of things you could do with that. Um, but the reverse engineering piece, it's kind of interesting. Every single business owner that I meet for the first time, we sit, whether it's in person or on Zoom, well, usually on Zoom. Um, I say, where do you want to be in life with your business? You're here, you want to be here, and that's our gap, right? So let's say let's say you're making $75,000 a year as an interpreter, you want to make 150. Okay, your gap is $75,000. And now this is going to sound super simple, but most people don't do it. Okay, $75,000 extra is what you need. What is your average income that you get per gig? To use the terminology gig, right? And let's say it's $1,000. Okay, we need to go find 75 more gigs. So I would take my calculator and I would go, okay, 75 divided by 12, that's 6.25 extra gigs per month, divided by 4 weeks, that's 1.5. So what do you got to do to go get 1.5? Now, some people know that, like, okay, well, I need to do 1.5 more gigs per week. Do I have the time to do that? If the answer is yes, cool. Go sell. Go market yourself. Go sell. Easy, right? Easy in theory. It's hard to do. You still got to learn how to do it. If that person says, I don't have the time to take on another 1.5 per week, well, then you got to raise your rates, right? There's different levers you could pull. Now, if you can't raise the rates because you're at a fixed rate or the industry dictates that, well, I can tell you this, you probably still could raise your rates. You know how you raise your rates? Become the very best at what you do, right? When I was a personal trainer, average personal trainer will charge $70, $80 an hour. The really good ones charge 100, 125. I got to the point where I was charging 200, $225 an hour because I became the best. And I also found my niche, right? I was known, it was very, very specific niche or niche, whatever terminology you want to use. And so I was able to go find a small population that really want to work with me. They're willing to pay that. So if you're saying I can't charge more, go make yourself better. Right. Then you reverse engineer it and you do that. Now there's another piece that people miss. Okay, great. I need to hit 1.5 more new gigs per week. How do I do that? Well, what then you got to measure your closing percentage, your sales closing percentage. your prospects. How many prospects, how many potential gigs do you need to pitch to get 1.5? If you've got a 15% closing rate, that means you need to talk to 10, you need to pitch yourself 10 times per week to close at 15% to get your 1.5 gigs per week. 10 seems like a lot. You know what? Become a better salesperson. Learn sales skills. Learn how to tell stories. Learn how to pitch yourself. Learn how to be the best that you can. So maybe get your percentage up to 30%, 50%, 60%, 70%. Find out who is your target demographic. I learned when I was a trainer, I was known for if you've got aches, pains, and injuries, and you've seen doctors and physical therapists, they can't figure it out. For some reason, I have a knowledge and I have understanding of the body to where I was able to get people results and fix their injuries. Where I had a client that went to the Mayo Clinic, they couldn't figure it out. I didn't figure out what it was, but I got them feeling better. Right. So I found this very specific thing there. So you find your specific where you are the best at, and they love you, go talk to them. You'll get a 90% close rate. You can talk to 2 to 3 business owner or pitches, for your gig per week and get your 1.5. So you see how there's a lot of, I like calling them levers. These are levers you can pull. You become a better salesperson, increase your closing percentage. You can just go talk to more business and prospects and pitch more gigs. You can hit that number, right? There's a lot of different ways to do this. And so the way to summarize all this, you can control a lot.
I think that when you, first of all, your keynote, and then afterwards also your workshop, I think that you're going to have people thinking out of the box.
Good. I like it. Thinking out of the box is great because everybody else is doing this and we're over here having fun.
David, thank you so much for taking the time to give us a preview of what we are sure will be an enriching and transformative day for interpreters at the DLMII annual retreat.
Looking forward to it. Thank you so much. I appreciate your time.
And to our viewers and listeners, thank you for joining us today. And don't forget to visit us at the DLMII Institute of Interpretation's website, DLMIIinstitute.com, so that you can get information on the annual business retreat and holiday celebration for interpreters, which will be on December 7th, 2024. We're going to have David Hardin, who's going to be giving us the keynote speech, as well as a workshop on productivity. Thanks again, David.
No worries. See y'all in Orlando next month.
And for those of you who aren't going to be able to join us in person, you can join us virtually for the workshop. So don't forget to look for the information on our website. If you have any questions, please email us at info@DLMIIinstitute.com. And don't miss this unique opportunity to grow your business skills, to recharge, and celebrate with fellow interpreters. We'd love to hear your thoughts on today's episode or any suggestions that you might have for future topics. You can reach us at podcast@DLMIIinstitute.com. Thank you for joining us once again here on Subject to Interpretation. And as we say, never stop learning.